So this video is a review of the basic forms and games infinitives play. It's not really meant to be an introduction, although I suppose you could use it as an introduction. But let's begin. Basic infinitives. So let's start with peripatein. Peripatein means to walk. It's a basic infinitive. If you were using one of the cheats, V stands for verb, P stands for present, N stands for infinitive, and A stands for active. So it's a present active infinitive. And for those of you who are a little bit further along in Greek, the circumflex over the iota, the little hat there, is the result of a crash. So peripateo is what's called a contract verb. Its stem ends in an epsilon, and that epsilon has crashed into the ane infinitive endings. Epsilon and epsilons crash to form epsilon iota, so it ends up looking the same anyway. But it is a contract verb. Ane is probably the first infinitive ending you should learn. Generally, ane is on a present active infinitive. So what are the basic translations of infinitives? Well, once you leave the indicative mood, time is really out the window. And so the difference between, say, an aorist infinitive and a present infinitive is not the timing of the infinitive. It's the kind of action. So a present infinitive probably has some connotation of a continuous flavor, to be loving. In other words, not to love. The aorist active is just to love, blah, to do it. But a present active implies a kind of continuous action to it, to be loving. Sometimes they're translated exactly the same. But the aorist is the default. It's the one that's unmarked. It's the no-frills version. It just says it happened. If you use a present infinitive, then probably the author is trying to bring out a nuance, a continuous nuance. So aorist is the no-frills, blah, it happened. The aorist tense is the Walmart of tenses, so to speak. Okay, so present active, to be loving, aorist active, to love. So the present passive, you wouldn't translate it to be being loved. But again, it has a continuous flavor. You know it because you've studied Greek. Whereas the aorist passive is more to be loved, blah. It's just kind of generic. Now there is a perfect active and a perfect passive infinitive. So to have loved implies something that's completed. You loved, and whatever it is still loved. Now to have loved for 20 years, or to have been loved for 20 years. There's a sense of something that happened and the result has continued into the present. So there is a little bit of time element in the perfect just because the nature of what a perfect is. Okay, so this slide is meant to tell you to review the basic connotations of the infinitives that exist. Okay, I left the middles off here. The middles would be, to love in one's own interest, or to love oneself, or whatever the middle nuance is for the word, that would be the nuance of the middles, but I left them off. Okay, what are the basic infinitive forms? So the present active infinitive form, the very first form you learn is ane, epsilon iota nu. But all the other forms have I at the end. Luesthai, lusai, lusasthai, luthenai, lelukenai, lelusthai. So you can see that 6 out of the 7 infinitive endings end in I. Okay? So 6 out of the 7 infinitive end in I, and the first one, the one that isn't I, is the first infinitive form you learn, luane. So luane is a present active infinitive. It means to be loosing, or something along those lines. Present middle or present passive, lelusthai. Now hopefully, you very quickly, hopefully, begin to associate st with something that's middle or passive. I know I have. Hopefully you can too. So that st is often a middle or passive ending. And 6 out of the 7 infinitives end in I. If it's middle, you would translate it, to be loosing oneself, or to loose in one's own interest, or something like that. If it's passive, it's to be loosed, or to be being loosed. Get a continuous flavor in there. Aorist active, well, it has the sigma alpha, so hopefully you can recognize that as an aorist from the sigma alpha. Outside of the indicative mood, the augment is out the window. The augment is only used in the indicative mood. The augment, it seems to me, Stanley Porter be darned. It seems to me that the augment is a pure temporal marker. The augment suggests that it is past tense in time. But outside of the indicative mood, the augment is out the window. And so even though this is aorist, it has no augment because it's an infinitive. So sigma alpha means aorist, and then 6 out of 7 infinitives end in I. So luci. So I would learn the luane, and then luci is worth memorizing. Okay, so it just means to loose, blah, no frills, generic Walmart branch tense, to loose. Aorist middle, lusasthai. Again, 6 out of 7 infinitives end in I. I've come to associate stha with middle or passive. Sigma alpha tells me it's aorist. So it's to loose oneself, say, or something like that. Or if it has if this particular verb has a special middle meaning, whatever that is, to do whatever that is. Aorist passive, luthenai. It has a theta eta that tells me it's aorist passive. And 6 out of the 7 infinitives end in I, so it's to be loosed. There you have it. And then the perfect, lelukenai. These two, the perfect active and the perfect middle passive, they have reduplication, so I can recognize it as perfect. Perfect active has a kappa, so that helps me recognize perfect active. The perfect middle passive has the stha, which helps me recognize it as middle passive, and it's shoved right on the stem. So there's no sthai or sthai. It's just lalu sthai, shoved right on the stem, which is characteristic of the perfect middle passive. So lelukenai, to have loosed, and lelusthai, to have been loosed. So there are the forms. They're really not that hard to know. They have most of the same tense indicators. And then 6 out of the 7 infinitives end in I. So there you have the forms. Now let me remind you of some of the translations of infinitives. Many infinitives are just nice and normal. So most of the time, infinitives simply translate as in English. So this is from Philippians 1. The to die is Christ. The to live is Christ. The to die is gain. Now, apothanein, you see the ain ending on it, so it's an infinitive. Now, if you know the word, again, some review here, this is an aorist. I know this is an aorist because, and you might say, where's the sigma alpha? Well, it's a second aorist. I know this is the aorist of apothnesko. And again, you just have to memorize, as you learn the irregular aorist, that this apothen is the aorist stem of apothnesko. Something that's on my next, I think it's on my next slide, is that I lied to you. Actually, I didn't lie to you, but it's not just the present active infinitive that takes the ain. Second aorist infinitives will take the ain as well. So this is to die is gain. Zain is irregular. I'm sorry, but it's a great verse. I wanted to use it. Zain is the irregular infinitive of zao. I would have expected something different, but let me just say that, just trust me, this is an infinitive of this particular word. So it's the to live is Christ. The to die is gain. Usually it's translated simply to live is Christ, to die is gain. That's fine. Nothing wrong with translating it that way. But this is a use of the infinitive that's called the articular use of the infinitive, because the infinitive has an article on it. It makes it into a kind of abstraction, doesn't it? The to die. What is the to die? And you kind of have to translate it either dying is gain, with what's called a gerund in English, or you can translate it simply to die is gain and leave the article off. But infinitives can have an article on it. It's always going to be a neuter singular article. But you can put a neuter singular article on an infinitive and make it into a noun, as it were, make it into an abstraction. What is living? What is the to live? What is the to die? Okay, but there are others. So like the word thelo, which means I want. You expect an infinitive. I want to be ignorant. Or in this case, I do not want you to be ignorant. But thelo expects an infinitive. You want an infinitive. If you live for the flesh, you are melete, to die. You're about what? You're about to go. You're about to sleep. You're about to die. So there's certain words like thello and mellow that they just need an infinitive to fill their meaning. It is necessary, day, for the Son of Man to suffer. So it is necessary to pick up your clothes. You want an infinitive with certain words. So thello, mellow, day, these words want an infinitive. And you would have translated it just fine. He began to teach. It is lawful to do good. So these words, thello, I want, mellow, I'm about to, day, it is necessary, archomai, or some form of I begin to teach. It is lawful, existi, to do good. So these words want an infinitive. You're going to translate them just fine. We wouldn't have even need to have this slide. You would have just translated all of these by using common sense. Okay, a couple odds and ends. I've already mentioned them really. Notice that the infinitive can have an article. I already mentioned that, the articular infinitive. So it can change something like the to die into dying or to die. I already mentioned that. Now the subject, quote unquote, not really a subject, but the subject in infinitive goes in the accusative case. So back in these examples, so it is necessary the Son of Man to suffer. It is if you live for the flesh, or see, I do not want you to be ignorant. It is necessary the Son of Man to suffer. In both these cases, you and the Son of Man is going to be accusative because the subject of an infinitive goes in the accusative case. We'll see some more examples of this in the slides yet to come. Lastly, and I've already told you this as well, second aorists prefer the present endings. So elthane means to come. And I know that elthane is an aorist active participle because I've memorized that elth is the aorist stem of erchomai, to come or to go. Okay, some odds and ends that needed to be mentioned. So here's some games that infinitives play. This is where you wouldn't have translated without knowing a little bit more. You wouldn't have translated correctly unless you knew a few other things. So infinitives can express purpose and result. This is where the infinitive basically means the same thing as hina or hapos. For example, if you have eis ta with an infinitive, it's going to translate in order to do something or with the result that you did something. So woodenly, it's into the to do something, but that would be bad English. So you translate it in order to do something or with the result of doing something. Let me give you an example. So here we have eis ta and an infinitive. Gnosai, remember 6 out of the 7 infinitives end in I, and sigma alpha tells me it's aorist. And then I gno this stem. It's the verb gnosko, to know, in the aorist. So, into the to know. Now that's going to be a bad English translation. So I have to roll with it and play with it, and it comes out in order to know. There's the analysis. Eis is a preposition. To is the article. It's a neuter article. Remember I said sometimes infinitives can take a article, and when they do, it's neuter singular. And there you have it. This is a neuter singular article. Okay. Also, other ways to express purpose are pros ta with an infinitive, or just the genitive article with an infinitive. And you're going to translate them all the same. You're going to translate them either in order to do the infinitive or with the result to do the infinitive. That's game number 1. Infinitives can be used to express purpose or to express result. Game number 2. Infinitives can be used to express cause. Here we use dia ta with an infinitive. Now you'll remember now that dia is a preposition that with the accusative means on account of. And so if you had dia ta enai autan, then dia with the accusative and ta is a neuter accusative singular article on the infinitive. This is the infinitive of to be. It means to be. So on account of the to be, him. Okay, this is a accusative pronoun. Remember I just said a second ago that the subject, quote unquote, of an infinitive is in the accusative case? Well, here you have it. Because of the to be him is because of the him to be. And again, I got to roll with it and use some common sense. because of the him to be is because he was. Because he was. There's the analysis. Okay? So infinitives can play purpose or result games, and they can play causal games. Finally, infinitives can play time games, temporal games. So an infinitive expression can be used to mean while. So take this one. En, preposition. To, neuter singular article that's in the dative because en takes the dative. Ani, there's to be again, infinitive of ami. And then I have autus, which is an accusative plural pronoun. Remember, the subject, quote unquote, of an infinitive is put in the accusative case. And then this is an adverb that means there. So it translates in the to be, this is the first rough translation. In the to be them there, I got to play with it, I got to roll with it, got to make this the subject of it. In the them to be there comes out as while they were there. This accusative becomes the subject, and then this becomes the verb. And because it's ento infinitive, I'm going to translate it as while. You can also do after time games. So mata with the accusative is a preposition that means after. There's a neuter singular article on the infinitive. 6 out of the 7 infinitives end in I. You'll also know, if you're watching this video probably, that this is a liquid verb that doesn't do sigmas. It's a liquid verb. And liquid verbs don't do sigmas, that's why there's no sigma there. So it's the ending psi, but without the sigma. So after the to kill becomes, yes, it is to kill. Sorry, the slide is wrong. Should be after the to kill, and then you're going to process it as after he killed, after killing, something like that. Sorry, I got it wrong. Okay, so ento infinitive is while. Matata infinitive is a way of expressing after. Lastly, you can express before using pra to infinitive. So this is a neuter singular article with the infinitive. This is a theta eta infinitive, so it's an aorist passive infinitive. And then auton is accusative, it becomes the subject of the infinitive. So before the to come together, or before the to be coming together him, before the to be conceived, him, becomes before he was conceived. So you can see there are three. There's a causal. There's a purpose result game with ace ta infinitive. There's a causal game with dia ta infinitive, and then there are time games. There's the while time game that is ento infinitive. There's the after time game that's mata ta infinitive, and then there's the before time game that's pra to infinitive. And there you have it. So again, what are the games that you can play? Let me kind of review again real quick. So there are common sense translations where you just translate it to dream, the impossible dream. These are the ones where you just translate it as it is. Then there are the purpose and result games that are ace ta with an infinitive. Then there's the causal game that is dia ta with the infinitive. Then there's the time game. There's the while time game. There's the after time game. And there's the before time game. By the way, you can also do it with prin and the letter eta. Prin A can also do this before game. Okay, indirect quotes. Last slide. What are direct quotes? Well, a direct quote is where you say exactly what they say. So Apin is the aorist of Lego. He said, and then capital P on Peruamai, he said, quote, I am going to the heaven. Okay, so there's a direct quote. Peruamai pros ton uranon, tells you exactly what he said in his words. But indirect discourse can be done with an infinitive. He said him to go to heaven. He said him to go to the heaven. So you see, we said the same thing, but this said it directly as a quote. Indirect discourse often will use an infinitive. Peruesthai is an infinitive. 6 out of the 7 infinitives end in I. Stha is a middle or passive kind of infinitive. So he said him, the subject of an infinitive is in the accusative case. He said him to go to the heaven. Becomes, he said that he was going to heaven, when you put it in its kind of colloquial English. There you have it, a little bit of review of infinitives. He said he was going to heaven. And now I'm going bye-bye.